farmers. You know, they're all farmers.
Yeah, with broken tractors and
Broken
whatnot.
tractors, all the plow blades, things like that.
I just feel like, our resources are being wasted with this. 15 days. Here's requesting an agenda item for consideration. As attached here to as exhibit A. Township website. So it was only posted on the website.
Yeah.
What do you do for old people who don't understand how to work the internet? My mom couldn't find the website if her life depended on it.
Was it published in the paper?
They must have published it in the paper.
Where they give it a shot. Oh, I get that.
It's my understanding that Patrick Sidewalk was HOA. And he was saying that, you had to specifically and clearly spell out the fines for the violations specifically. And after like how long, like whatever, that's what's missing. Like, you just gave a vague 50 to 500 per occurrence, but is it based on the severity? Like the more broken the car is, the more fine you're gonna pay, or they're not.
Some of them said.
Actually, when I went by your house, I saw Bill Nye, and I thought that was Bill's son. He has a
No, I
car.
came alongside of him,
Yeah,
and I was named for Doug, so he was named for him too.
yeah.
Yeah, he was the auto guy.
Right. That's who I actually thought it was.
I'm a bit older than he is. Yeah.
No, Dr. Nye, he was our family doctor. My mother got bit by one of the dogs once. She got gangrene. And she was but he used to come over to us.
I didn't know my dad, who was a pharmacist. He had a drugstore down there.
I knew him. He took me outside this time one day. It's now, I know he was doing shit. I can't
That was from.
Like, I don't know.
Right?
Red.
All right.
Red. Yeah.
Wait a few minutes.
And now I got
Yeah.
beer.
That's what it says.
Right, and I got Greg. He was there Wednesday too. Definitely would. But if I had introduced him, he would have been here yet.
6 years of traveling.
I think he was counting people getting
Part of me sees some national sales managers of those regions.
Yeah, right, you're gonna get right on that.
The company I'm working for is a Swedish company. They've been in Illinois, off in the States since
Yes.
hindsight 2020, had I known how tough it would have been because they had much travel.
Oh, okay.
It's almost out of care, and Joanne, she can come up and show us. It's all the ladies and men's club and that stuff and travel all the time. I watch all these on international farming. And I'm sitting on the phone. You can't do anything.
I think a lot of our farms disappearing nowadays. The farmers alone completely.
I was up here last week. Great. We sell compressor hose rails, connectors,
Cause I had the Kit Kats, the Princes, yeah. Right now. She's right here now, days ago. Yeah, right. This last month, the last one, Captain States, she was on Mchenry Township. She said, did you go? I went. It was the same day, the same day.
The county's supposed to drive around looking at driving cars. Because the city already has one.
That's the way.
That's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I was thinking. Nobody else is doing. So I want to force it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
Because I brought an extra copy.
No, I'm just, okay, we're gonna fill it out. I'll just put it
Nobody even ran against us. Well, I'm glad you did it. Yeah, we're running like a it really does. And these guys do a good job.
I got a green card too. I'm green work now.
Oh, yeah?
You're in charge here? Yeah. You're the man.
I'm still at the it seems like All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. However, we're going to wait about 10 minutes because of the accident up here. So we'll give it 10 minutes before we do the Pledge of Allegiance.
You'll be here. You know my
So is it
This was too fast.
Where's the slide?
We were gonna have, I think.
Everybody's all right?
They admitted they didn't use it for that.
I come from Wonder Lake, so I come
Don't make me get up, I got fat.
So you are for this thing or against this thing?
You don't care, you don't live down here.
I often come to this shit.
Yes, I have, but not.
We can all stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Okay. Reading of the notice of the annual town meeting is published.
Can you
Annual
speak in
town-
the microphone?
Sorry.
Thanks.
Annual town meeting notice is hereby given to legal voters, residents of the town of Mchenry, in the county of Mchenry, state of Illinois, that annual town meeting of said town will take place on Tuesday, April 9th, 2019, being the second Tuesday of that same month, at the hour of 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you. Next, we have the introduction of the elected officials. We have Jim Condon, Mary Mahady, Craig Adams, Steve Veer, Stan Wojcicki, and I see Chuck Brewer here. If there's any other one, please stand up and give your name. None being heard us. And that's it. Okay, now we have to nominate a monitor for the annual meeting. Do we have any?
What?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Neil Shipler as our moderator for this evening.
Okay. Is there any other? I'm sorry?
I'll second it.
Okay. That being said, can I hear, I need a vote?
I'd like to nominate Eric Syverson to be the moderator.
Second.
Okay. So we have Neil Shepherd. Is there one? Who is it? See?
Eric Syverson.
Okay, for Neil Shepherd, we need a vote. You getting set?
On my side. How many do you have?
14.
14 on your side.
Okay, for Eric,
52.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
8.
With that being said, Neil is elected. That's with 32 votes. Okay, Neil, can you step up, please? Okay, raise your right hand. I state your full name. Being elected as an office of moderator
Office of Moderator
in the township of Mchenry,
in the Township of McCain,
in the county of McHenry,
in the County of McCain,
do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I faithfully discharge the duties of the office of moderator
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of moderator
to the best of my
to
ability.
the best of my ability.
Thank you. Take a seat. It's all yours. Here's the minutes.
Next item on the agenda is the reading of the minutes of the 2018 annual town meeting and call for approval.
We skipped number 8.
Number 8, nomination.
Oh, you know what? That's my fault.
Of parliamentarian.
Okay, nomination for the parliamentarian. Didn't think I'd ever get that word out. Yes,
I nominate James Carmella.
okay. Is there a second to that? Okay. Is there any other? Vote then. You still got to come.
You still get to count the votes.
13 on this side.
21 on this side.
Congratulations. I knew you. It's all yours.
Okay, we'll go to reading of the minutes of the 2018 annual town meeting.
Can the moderator get his microphone? Thank you.
Meeting minutes of the Mchenry Township annual meeting, April 10th, 2018. The 2018 annual meeting, Mchenry Township was called to order at the posted and published hour of 7 p.m. by Township Attorney Jim Militello. In the absence of Clerk Aylward, Militello asked to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance at the Town Hall on the 10th of April of 2018, in the presence of 90 electors and 7 observers, the following business was conducted. Township Attorney Militello welcomed the electors and participants and then introduced the township elected officials. He also recognized all elected officials in attendance. Andy Glad of the city of McHenry, who is an alderman, Mark Justin of the city McHenry Fire Protection District, and Village of Johnsburg, Tom Curry was a trustee. Township Attorney Militello then requested nominations for a moderator to conduct business of the annual meeting. A motion was made by John McCredo and seconded by Tina Redmond to elect Bruce Novak as moderator. With no other nominations, the electors all voted all ayes and no nays. The motion carried. Mr. Novak was then issued and signed the oath of office by the Township Attorney Militello. Mr. Novak read the minutes of the 2017 annual meeting. There was a motion by Calhoun to approve the minutes of the 2017 annual meeting, seconded by Leon Van Avery. Voice vote, all ayes, no nays. The motion carried. Mr. Novak then read the supervisor's financial report. No questions asked. Marcia Nelson motion to approve the financial report, seconded by Tina Redmond. Voice vote, all ayes, no nays. Motion carried. Mr. Novak requested the statement address from Supervisor Craig Adams. Supervisor Adams stated that Mchenry Township has kept their levy flat for 6 years and are the only government body in McHenry County that has done this. Currently, the township has lowered the tax levy by 10%. Mr. Adams introduced his staff, Debbie McCredo, Phil Terry Wagner, and Matt Morrison. Mr. Adams then explained that the Salvation Army has stopped delivering meals and that he was able to work with NEIAA and Catholic Charities to make sure that this program was able to continue in McHenry County. He also mentioned that we were able to help with the installation of warning sirens to help our residents. This past year we had record flooding and were able to work with the emergency management services and put together a resource center in a few days, which was an amazing collaboration of service agencies and public services for all of our residents. Mr. Adams also thanked Highway Commissioner Jim Condon and the employees for all their hard work. Mr. Adams also wanted to thank the McHenry Moose and Johnsburg Police Department for all their efforts. Mr. Adams stated that the township facilities, senior bus is in full use with our residents. Mr. Adams also stated he was very proud of the ability to have the Wall That Heals brought to the township with the help of Marcia Nelson, our volunteer coordinator, and all of the other volunteers involved. Lastly, Mr. Adams wanted to let everyone know we're the closest form of government to the residents, and we are here to help our neighbors. You can expect a quick response from our office. Mr. Novak requested a state of address from Highway Commissioner James Condon. Mr. Condon thanked all for coming and explained what he has been doing in the past year. Mr. Condon stated that we maintain 120 miles of roadway, which is the largest within the county and maybe the state. Mr. Condon stated they have 4 brochures that explains in detail the tasks of the highway department. As we will be trying to save tax dollars, we will be using a treated salt next year. Initially, this will cost more, but will in the long run be more effective, cost efficient, and better for the environment. Lastly, Mr. Condon stated that they will be replacing the conveyor for the salt dome to make it more efficient, effective, and less hazardous. Mr. Condon also thanked the trustees and supervisor for approving this expenditure. Mr. Condon stated that the annual road programs are expected to be done in late summer. Mr. Condon also expects to complete 2 more road projects, which are a collaborative effort with the Village of Ringwood and the City of McHenry. These 2 road programs have allowed the township to save over $500,000 in taxpayer dollars by using federal funds. This was done by the previous Commissioner Leon Van Avery. Mr. Condon stated that they will be addressing drainage issues within the township, replacing street signs, and continuing with the recycling program. Mr. Condon stated they will be adding paint recycling this year. Mr. Condon wanted to thank personally all his employees for all their hard work. Mr. Condon also stated that the township will be hosting a flood prevention program to help the residents to be better prepared in case of emergency. Mr. Condon stated we should be proud that we have been on the forefront of reducing the tax levy and being the first to give a 5% tax abatement for the year. Mr. Condon asked if there were any questions or comments. Trustee Cunningham asked why Bob Miller was used as a consultant on the salt conveyor. Mr. Condon responded to save the taxpayers money since Mr. Miller charged $40 an hour versus as a consultant who wanted to charge $100 an hour. Mchenry Township Attorney Militello explained the next item of the agenda of new business and how the process works. Electors requesting for the township board to reconsider keeping all of the township parks. The upkeep is minimal and adds to the values of our neighborhoods. Discussion, motion from the floor, possible action. Motion was made by Colleen Zramick and a second by Marcia Nelson. Discussion ensued. Attorney Militello explained that if you vote yea, it is to keep the parks, and if you vote nay, it is not to keep the parks. The voice vote was 75 ayes and 1 nay. The motion carried. B, electors requesting the approval of the expenses incurred for the completion of a study determining any cost savings or additional costs associated if Mchenry Township is eliminated or consolidated to Mchenry Township. Motion from the floor for possible action. Motion was made by Tom Webb, and the second was made by Robert Beltran. Discussion ensued as Attorney Militello explained that if you vote yea, it is to have the township do a study, and if you vote nay, it is not to have the township do a study. The voice vote was 76 ayes and 0 nays. The motion carried. Township Attorney Militello stated that item number 14 on the agenda is a declaration of surplus property and stated that there was none at this time. Township Attorney Militello stated that there was no old business at this time. Township Attorney Militello stated if it's time for public comment, asked Vera Sidorowicz at 4831 Loyola Drive in Mchenry, who stated she scratched her name, no comment. Asked Judy Gottlieb at 2814 Regner Road, Mchenry, to speak, stated she has worked on the cost of running the road district over the last 8 weeks and gave her data. She offered copies of the data and to discuss with anyone who was interested. Next was Robert Beltran at 2814 Regner Road. I was asked to speak. He passed. Asked William Cunningham of 7208 Salem Street in Wonder Lake to speak. He passed. Asked Bradley Hederman at 7316 Parkwood Drive, Wonder Lake to speak. He passed. Asked Stan Wojcicki at 7605 Orchard Drive, Wonder Lake to speak. He passed. Asked Carl. There was no response. Township Attorney Militello asked if anyone else would like to speak at this time, and then asked them to come up and state their name. William Nye at 1634 North Riverside, Mchenry. Stepped forward. He asked the board to consider some type of ordinance in regards to abandoned vehicles. Mark Houston at 313 North Green Street, Mchenry. Asked the board to bring back the obnoxious weed ordinance. Township Attorney asked for a resolution to set the date and time of the 2019 annual meeting to be on the second Tuesday in April 2019. Motion was made by Jim Condon and seconded by Joe Zramick. All in favor, the motion carried. Township Attorney Militello asked for a motion to adjourn. Jim Condon motion to adjourn the meeting, second by Mark Houston. All in favor, the motion carried. The meeting was adjourned at 9:10 p.m.
Okay, we need a motion for approval of the minutes by Mike Tall.
T-A-U-L-E-R.
And I need a second.
Second.
A vote. Need a vote.
It's a vote to approve, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
This is why I'm gonna do this.
be 38 total. Any nays? 38 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Next on the agenda is the finance supervisor's financial reports. Supervisor's Statement of Financial Affairs General Town Fund. Beginning balance as of April 1st, 2018, $3,750,837.92. Kind of looks like my checking account. Revenues, $1,281,067.69. Grants, $39,008. Interest income, $28,783.08. Illinois replacement tax, $11,516.01. Other revenue, see Schedule A, $52,814.06. Total revenues, $1,413,188.84. Expenses, administration, $977,283.42. Assessor, see Schedule B, $503,946.65. Park, $507,182.44. Transfer to general assistance, $133,712.07. Total expenditures, $2,122,124.58. Ending balance as of March 31st, 2019, $3,041,902.18. Okay, general assistance fund, beginning, motion to approve. Do I have a motion to approve? Okay, there's Leah.
Great wall.
Do I have a second? All ayes. Any nays? All ayes. Motion carries. Now, general assistance fund. Beginning balance on April 1st, 2018, $325,149.72. Revenues, property taxes, $132,390.12. Illinois replacement tax, $2,860.94. Interest income, $2,747.20. Intergovernment transfer, town and other revenues, $133,712.07. Other revenues, $5,295. Total revenues, $277,005.33. Expenditures, administration, $264,991.19. Total expenditures, $264,991.19. Ending balance as of March 31st, 2019, $337,163.86. Okay, I need a motion for approval on that.
Of the
I'm sorry?
report. What was the name of the report?
That's for the general assistance fund.
Thank you.
Do I have a first on that approval? Judy?
Yeah.
Do I have a second? I'm sorry, your name?
Adam.
All ayes? Any nays? All ayes. Motion carries. And the next is the Road and Bridge Fund. The beginning balances of April 1st, 2018, $1,354,587.45. Property taxes, $1,009,104.98. Illinois replacement tax, $32,103.49. Interest income, $9,649.83. Intergovernment agreement, $105,505.39. Traffic fees, $14,665.30. Other revenue, Schedule A, $13,934.24. Total revenues, $1,184,953.23. Expenditures, administration, $346,688.05. Maintenance, $1,282,063.13. Total expenditures, $1,628,751.18. Ending balance as of March 31st, 2019, $910,789.50. Do I have a motion to approve? Robert? And a second? John? All in favor? Are there any nays? All in favor, motion carries. Last one is a permanent hard road fund. Beginning balances at April 1st, 2018, $700,240.94. Property taxes, $325,225.12. Intergovernment agreement, Indian Ridge, $1,405,334.57. Illinois replacement tax, $26,329.35. Interest income, $5,779.52. Miscellaneous income, $3,077.18. Total revenues, $2,765,745.74. Expenditures, salaries, $803,354.49. IMRF, $45,404.79. Payroll tax expense, $61,734.17. Employee insurance, $110,587.92. HRA, $22,399.99. $2,000,000.96. Road repair and construction, $2,083,435.32. Total expenditure, $3,126,916.65. Ending balance as of March 31st, 2019, $339,070.03. Motion to approve. Aaron?
Either or, don't matter. First and second.
Second? Oh, all ayes, motion carries.
We didn't vote.
All right, motion to approve.
It's gonna be on there too.
Any nays? Now, all ayes, motion carries. I was anticipating. I knew it. Next on the agenda. All right, this is turned back to you. State of the
Next item on the agenda is State of Town Address. First we have for the Township Supervisor, Craig Adams.
All right, after that, all the CPAs are excited and nobody else is going to be right now, so. Thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy evening activities to be here and to listen to the state of the township. This year, 2019, Mchenry Township celebrates 170 years of continuous service to the community. And looking at the minutes of the first meeting ever, two things were of most interest to me. First, as part of the oath of office, the township officials solemnly swear that they neither fought a duel that resulted in a death, nor that they had been a second in such a duel. Secondly, the main order of business was to decree it illegal for bulls and swine to run loose in the township, but cattle were allowed. Of interest, how some things have stayed the same. Now we have a lot of residents that want chickens to run free in their area. So some things stay the same, but more importantly, over this 170 years, townships have changed drastically to meet the needs of the community. Mchenry Township has evolved over these 170 years, and township government is still the closest government to the people. Tonight's annual township meeting is a perfect example of how township government is closest to the people. At this meeting, all of you, the electors, can direct the township on over 30 different corporate powers. This means you, the electors, can direct the township on what you would like to see us do in a number of different areas. No other form of government in Illinois allows the electors these powers. In addition, at Mchenry Township, if you have an issue, problem, complaint, and yes, many times we even get compliments on issues in the township, when you call, you'll be able to speak directly to the road commissioner, to the assessor, or to myself. We do listen and we take all of your comments seriously and try to find solutions to your issues. We also personally will call you back if we happen to be out when your call comes in. And I know that takes place here. Township government provides services, some statutory and other determined by the citizens of each community. Our township has determined those things we all hold dear. We're concerned about open space, recreational opportunities. We're concerned about the environment. We value the contributions and well-being of our older residents. We help to provide facilities to feed the poor in our community. We provide facilities to serve our senior citizens. We provide opportunities for our youth to enjoy sports programs, keeping them focused on positive life choices. We provide transportation for the disabled and the senior citizens of our community to keep them active, to help them maintain a good mental attitude, which enables them to stay in their home that they have worked so hard for many years to obtain. We provide assistance for those not needing a hand out, but a hand up. All these services are not accomplished by a handful of people, but by dedicated employees, volunteers, and community agencies that we collaborate with to provide opportunities to the citizens of Mchenry Township. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the employees in my office. One, we have Debbie Mchenry. She's out in the hall out there. She's an internal part of our township operations. Some of these other employees are not here. Denise McGill is our receptionist. Matt Morrison is one of our caseworkers. Terry Wagner is our operations manager. Flo Gibbett is our accounting and personnel manager. And it is through this teamwork that we get things done to best serve the community. It is my pleasure to work with the staff and employees that step up to get things done, whatever needs to be done, sometimes at a moment's notice. I'm not going to bore you with all the statistics of the township this year. I'm just going to point out a couple major accomplishments that we did this year that I'm very proud of. We all remember the polar vortex that we had when this major winter event came, when we had over 8 or 10 days of sub-zero weather. Well, during this severe cold weather, over a week of sub-zero temperatures, our Mchenry Township staff, in cooperation with the Old Fire Assistance Center in Woodstock, stepped up to open our Whispering Hills Community Center as a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week homeless shelter for homeless individuals in McHenry County, so they would not freeze to death in extreme cold. These homeless individuals were difficult individuals. They were chronically homeless, and they had no other place to go. Other shelters had probably refused them for some of their behaviors, etc. And we certainly didn't, at McHenry Township, want them to freeze in the cold due to maybe mental health issues, maybe alcoholism, whatever. We felt it was our responsibility to step up and do something. This effort was a Herculean task. Opening a shelter, getting beds, blankets, pillows, food, and staffing the shelter 24 hours a day. Seven? It went dead. Oh, here we go. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in McHenry County, so these individuals would not freeze to death in the extreme home.
Deffer, what's my battery is dying here.
Let's try this one. All right. The effort was a Herculean task. Opening a shelter, getting blanks. I already said that, okay? Per week, for an 8-day period until the bitter cold subsided. The shelter was planned and opened in about 10 hours on the same Friday that a call came in on how we could help our homeless citizens during this severe weather event. The township sheltered a total of 9 individuals who stayed at the shelter over this period of time and otherwise might have frozen to death in this bitter cold. I want to express my extreme thanks to Ms. Sue Rose of the Old Firehouse Assistance Center in Woodstock for calling McHenry Township to see if we had any ideas on how to shelter our homeless during this period. I would also like to give my utmost praise and thank you to Debbie Mercredo, our township employee, who started this entire shelter, organizing with a very short time span and donating many hours of her personal time to coordinate and staff the shelter. A very good unexpected outcome. Yes, thank you. A very good unexpected outcome came of this shelter. 2 of the individuals that were chronically homeless have found now permanent housing in McHenry County due to the contact that all these individuals had with them. One was a vet who was homeless for many, many years in the Woodstock area, and he is now housed somewhere. That's a wonderful thing that happened. Again, it wasn't just the township, it wasn't just some individuals. It was the community as a whole who stepped up to help our less fortunate citizens. Local churches, pastors, community residents, the McHenry County Sheriff's Department, Johnsburg Police Department, all local police departments, they all volunteered those police departments to make sure, excuse me, it chokes me up, if there was something they saw in the community, they would get them to our shelter. The McHenry Township Road District and our staff stepped up, volunteered their hours. the Mchenry Township assessor herself, plus many of her staff volunteered hours, caring for these individuals. Many of the community maybe didn't volunteer hours, but they came out of nowhere with food, socks, blankets, clothing. It was just a wonderful thing. I'd also like to thank many local community organizations, such as the Mchenry Noon Rotary Club, who stepped up and helped, the women's group of the Polish American Legion, who had knitted hundreds of blankets and donated them, and many others I'm sure I forgot to thank, as there were so many numerous organizations involved in this effort. It was truly a community effort, and something we should all be proud of. I'd also like to highlight one more event. I mentioned it last year, but we had the Wall That Healed, which is a memorial to the Vietnam veterans that perished in Vietnam, that was here in display in the Mchenry Township Park over Memorial Day weekend. Again, many volunteers in the entire community made this event happen. It was a comfort to many Vietnam veterans and other military veterans. I need to personally thank the Mchenry VFW, the Mchenry Moose Club, Gary Lang Auto Group, and the community that planned and execute, the committee that planned and executed this event. I'd like to also personally thank Ron Bykowski, who made sure the VFW Honor Guard was here twice a day to blow the bugle for us, and also to do the gun salute. Missy Robo of the Veterans of Valor, she was a big instrument in getting veterans resources for us to have this done. And then I'd also like to thank Captain James A. Lovell, the Apollo 13 commander, who took time out of his busy schedule to come out here and pay honor to the veterans. I explain these two events because this is what township government is all about. Responding to the needs of the local community. Doing what the Mchenry Township electors request for services that your local government can do. Lastly, your Mchenry Township government does this by having a balanced budget with no money and with no debt and money in the bank. We do not spend what we do not have, and we save for a rainy day because we know that day will come, but just not when. If we are expecting a large purchase, we save for this purchase so we don't have to borrow monies, which would further increase your taxes. Mchenry Township, as I mentioned before, for 6 years kept our levy flat. Last year we abated 10%. This year, due to the thanks to our board, the township has reduced your levy by 10% for this year. We truly live our motto. We truly live our motto, doing more for less. Mchenry Township is responsible, effective, and efficient. Your township officials live in the same community as you do. As they say, we all skin in the game, and we want the same thing you want from government: cost, effective, and responsiveness. Thank you for allowing me the time.
Thank you, Craig. Next, we'll have the address from our township assessor, Mary.
Good evening. Thank you to everyone for coming this evening. I appreciate that. As you know, my job responsibility here at the township is to place a value on all the properties in the township. And I know it's not the most glamorous position, but it is a very important one. So I'm just going to give you a little highlight on the 2018 numbers, because that's where we're at this point, even though we're now in April of 2019. At the end of 2018, we had increased our equalized assessed value by approximately $73 million, which just continues to show that the trend in increasing values is continuing. Part of that was about $3 million in new construction, which again is another sign that we're doing, that new construction happening in the township is always a positive sign. We did reduce our number of parcels a little bit because a lot of people combined parcels. A lot of you may be aware there's a lot of people who own 2 or 3 parcels. We try to get them to combine them for their own safety so they don't lose those parcels in tax sales and those kind of things. But ultimately, we're down about 100 parcels this year. to about 24,853. And then as far as our 2018 assessment appeals, we had 554, which is down about 122 from last year. The other numbers I want to talk to you about this evening are the exemption numbers. So basically any exemption that anyone gets is a good thing. It reduces their tax responsibility, their tax burden. But what that does is means that everyone else has to pick up their responsibility. We do have an increase this year in many of our assessment exemptions. The biggest one was in our senior freeze exemption. We had an additional 201 exemptions in that particular area. We had an additional 105 in the senior exemption. So basically what that means, there's anyone over 65, you get an exemption just by virtue of being 65. So we have an older population. And then if you are 65 and over and your household income is 65,000 or less, you get to freeze the assessment on your property. So we're seeing more people apply for those exemptions. We also had an increase of 29 candidates, people that homeowners that qualified for the 70 to 100% disabled veteran exemption. And that particular exemption means that those homeowners pay no property tax. So we went from we added 29 of those this year. So there's a total of 138 homes in Mchenry Township that pay no property taxes. So other than that, basically we work really hard all year long to collect the information and get these numbers correct. I also do, part of my effort in the assessment office is to be a representative for the township in Springfield and to our local elected representatives and senators. And just recently went down to Springfield. There's a lot of laws that affect all of us through the assessment process that are important to bring to the attention of our elected representatives. And I always carry that message for you to them, and happy to talk to you about them at any time. Also, in the next month or so, I have 3 or 4 assessor forums that I offer that are all going to be listed after this meeting on our township website. Basically, a lot of people want to come and talk to me after they get their assessment notice or their tax bill, but I have 2 evening and 2 daytime time slots to meet with people to answer questions. I'm always available by appointment and usually in the office. But I just like to offer those so that if people have questions, you have an opportunity before you get your tax bill or before you have to file your appeal. So other than that, we're just clicking along, and if anyone has any questions, I'll be here after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Now we'll hear from Mchenry Township Highway Commissioner Jim Condon.
If he's technically savvy enough to get this working. 1 second. Hello. Warm up here.
Should we shut down now?
Helps if you turn it on, huh? Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah. Get what's up?
All right, I think that should work. All right, I'm gonna go without the mic. I talk loud, so if I'm not quite loud enough, let me know. I'll talk a little louder. Yeah, it'd be great if you'd set off the front lights there. Again, gotta get my sheets in order here. Sorry. That'll work. Thank you. So. Here we are again for year 4 of my annual report. Just a reminder, my name is Jim Condon and I'm still the Highway Commissioner. I say that because most of you probably have forgotten who I am, because I haven't been regularly in the Northwest Herald thanks to the unsuccessful November referendum to eliminate the road district. It's too bad we can't say the same thing about the Algonquin Township Highway Commissioner. It's unfortunate the bad publicity that he brings to townships. First and foremost, tonight I'd like to thank the almost 70% of the voters in the November election that voted to reject the initiative to eliminate the road district and incorporate it into the township. I believe this is a good gauge for how people believe we are performing and utilizing your tax dollars. I also believe this is a good gauge for how people perceive the efforts put forth by the road district employees. And for that, I have to say I'm blessed with people that take serious our motto of doing more for less. So I originally planned on spending a few brief moments on each of the tasks that the road district completes throughout the year. But fortunately for you, the staff pointed out that if we did that, we'd probably be here until tomorrow morning. In place of that, I strongly recommend on your way out today that you take a copy of each of our 4 brochures that list the different tasks that we do throughout the year. Our summer operations, winter operations, emergency operations related to storm events, and our community involvement. I think if you go through those, you'll be amazed at all the things that we do that we never even realize, and most people never realize that we even look at or think about. Beyond that, I want to touch on a couple of things that we find are important to the road district, or main tasks for us. First, one of our most important tasks is snow plowing, and wow, what a winter we had. As you can see from the information listed here, we've had a very busy winter. We had over 48 call-outs this past winter, when over the last 4 years the average was 35. We had over 2,300 hours of plowing time, when the average was 1,700 over the past 4 years. We used 2,920 tons of salt this past winter, and what really stands out is we plowed over 28,000 miles of road this last year compared to the average of 24 or 21 over the last 4 years. But the nice part about this whole thing is if you look right there, salt usage. We had more storms, more events this past year than we've had in previous years. And I find this interesting because what it indicates to me is our staff is looking to find ways to do more with less, which is one of the best examples in the township of us doing that. So let's be honest. I truly believe that we did as well or better than any other governmental agency in the area. Especially if you live in Mchenry County, and in particular Mchenry Township, you have to believe that maybe it's time that we eliminate the state plowing services and start letting local governments, like the Township Road District, do that work for them both cheaper and more efficiently. Obviously, another big part of our efforts is maintenance of our roads, upgrading our roads, reconstructing our roads. We had 2 major projects this past year for reconstruction that were done in conjunction with other local municipalities. The first was the repaving of Ringwood Road from Route 120 to just east of South Solon Road. That involved the governmental agencies of Johnsburg, McHenry, Wonder Lake, maybe not Wonder Lake, McComb Lake, and Johnsburg. And as a result of that, again, that's a multiple governmental agency project. We also reconstructed Lincoln Road from the river out to just west of Chapel Hill Road. That construction project was done in conjunction with the city of McHenry, and it actually went all the way from Route 31, but that section is called Pearl Street in McHenry. Which brings me back to, we forgot one elected official over here tonight, Mr. Andy Glab, who's a council member for the city of McHenry. Congratulations on your recent election. That was great. So those were our 2 major projects, and the best part about those projects was the funds, the expenses to local taxpayers or the tax-paying portion for the local taxes was 20% of those projects. So there was a great deal of money saved by working with the various municipalities that we do on a regular basis. We did do our annual road program, which included paving the south half of West Shore Beach, or West Shore Beach subdivision, which is located just east of Ringwood Road and north of Parkland. We also completed repaved Maryville, and we finished the pavement construction of Indian Ridge subdivision, the final phase of that, up in the Wonder Lake area. So, one other thing that we do, obviously, is recycling. We have 7 events throughout the year, we had another fabulous year of recycling at our monthly events from April to November. Our totals this year were higher than they've ever been in the past years. You can see the summary of those here. As a result of this, actually I want to touch on one other thing. The last line there, I should have pointed out. As mentioned in the minutes from last year, we started a recycling program this past year, and we recycled over 2,000 gallons of paint this year. Paint that would have ended up anywhere from landfills to illegal dumps, things like that. We collected that here, and it was disposed of appropriately with through the IEPA. So that was a big step in the right direction for us on that. Our annual program resulted in Mchenry Township receiving the 2018 Green Award presented by the McHenry County Health Department. It's in recognition of a year of your solid waste reduction and recycling efforts, which benefit the whole community. So we're very excited about that. Obviously, it's nice that people notice that we're doing something positive. This past year, we've had a little bit of turnover with our staff, but I have to say that many of the existing staff have really taken the initiative to fill the responsibilities of employees moving on. I just want to take a minute and introduce our staff. If you would just hold your applause till the end if you decide to applaud. For starters, Dave Kottner is probably our longest long-term employee. Go ahead and stand up, guys, when I mention your name if you're here. Dave Kottner, he has been promoted to working foreman. Adam Vick, who is now our operations manager. If you call in and there's something to be scheduled, Adam's the one that's scheduling that work, obtaining our permits and our approvals, making sure everything's done, ready to go so that when they go out, Dave's got the guys doing the work. Jimmy Walters is our head mechanic. Bob Michaels is our assistant mechanic and does a tons of other stuff. The remainder of the guys are the guys that you see out in the field doing the physical labor, whether it be operating equipment, snow plowing, picking up garbage, mowing, anything. Nels Pedersen, Joe Frank, BJ Irwin, Jim Pucci, Eddie Bauer, Carlos Navarez, Brandon McCoy, Eric Special, Jack Smith, and Mike Mateo. Just a quick note, Brandon Smith is the foreman of our sewer crew, ditching and sewer crew, which is something that we've really expanded recently and really to start addressing all of those drainage issues we've had. Jack Smith, I don't think he's here tonight. He's been out with some injuries, but he's a retired concrete worker, and you'll never find somebody that knows concrete better than him or works harder than him. And then we have Mike Mateo, who is our arborist, actually. He worked for us many years ago and rejoined us again this last year. So congratulations on those guys. After this past year, I think we owe these people a great deal of gratitude, especially when it comes to snow plowing. This work is completed more often after hours than during regular work day, and many times during holidays. These people are on call from November to April, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you really do have to appreciate that. Until you do that, until you're on call, all those times you really don't have an appreciation for how that really affects your life and what the commitment is to that. So again, thanks guys for making my job easy, to be quite honest with you. The next thing we want to just touch on is, for the third year in a row, we have been blessed with great weather for McHenry County's largest Touch-a-Truck event. As a result, we had over 2,100 visitors, enjoy over 85 pieces of equipment, provided by over 36 exhibitors. As in the past, we even had a visit from one of our local, our vendors' helicopters, which obviously the kids get the big kick out of that, hopping in there and getting their picture taken there. And one of the highlights is when that comes in and lands, and obviously when it takes off. It's kind of neat. You know, we don't see that every day, and to be up close to see it happen is pretty special. Many thanks to our vendors who participated, and to the neighbors, the Moose Lodge, who annually allow us to utilize their parking facilities to help us with the many visitors we have that day. Lastly, we started a new program this year, right-of-way revegetation. This past year, we started the revegetation of our right-of-way program to transform our outer limits from standard mowed grass to natural vegetative habitats for pollinators such as bees and butterflies. However, that's the small benefit, the side benefit. The major benefits are the reduction in maintenance costs, because areas like this will mow one time a year instead of 3 times a year. It'll improve stormwater runoff control by reducing the total runoff. It also improves water quality from the runoff by the plantings actually cleaning the water. And it improves the visual aesthetics. This has been done on the south side of Ringwood Road, just east of the southeast side of Ringwood Road, just east of Amby Lane, and along the north side of Lincoln Road, across from North Cassandra Lane intersection, the North Cassandra Lane intersection. Although these areas don't look like much now, we believe you will enjoy them in the future and appreciate the tax savings they provide. If you look here, these pictures that you see in front of you here are on Ringwood Road. What you see right there is an overgrown area behind the guardrail that was in the right-of-way, but it was never maintained. It's become extremely overgrown. We went in there, cleared that right-of-way out. You see a picture of it there, and then the guys working just before the seeding of the area. Then we reseeded that area, and this is what it looked like about 2 months later. And what you don't see here, though, which you'll see in about a year or 2 years, you'll start to see a lot of flowering type of vegetation. A lot of things like that really improve the aesthetics of the area, and then also do things that goofy engineers like I get a kick out of, water quality and water runoff reduction, things like that we think is kind of cool. Everybody else thinks that it's weird for that. So anyway, that's a new program that we started. So we're going to move on and talk a little bit about 2019, 2020, and some of the highlights that I see coming in the future here. Currently, the first one that you see listed there, currently we're in the final stages of the transfer of 7.7 miles of previously non-dedicated subdivision roads in our township road districts into our township road district system. This is part of a joint effort by Mchenry Township Road District, McHenry County Division of Transportation, McHenry County Board, and we have a board member here tonight, Mr. Wheeler. Thank you very much I think you've supported that all along. I greatly appreciate that. And the various subdivision associations to bring these roads up to an acceptable standard, acceptable condition, so that the McHenry Township can maintain the roads in perpetuity. This thus gives an end to a very frustrating issue for a whole bunch of people for a very long time, 20 years or more, where they've tried to work through this process, and thanks to a lot of good action, especially on the county board part, to move this forward. This 7.7 mile program is anticipated to occur over 3 years, and with the first year being the reconstruction of Shalimar subdivision roads, Heman subdivision, East Mistake Bay subdivision, and a portion of Mineral Springs subdivision to be reconstructed this year. And then with remainders over the next 2. The second thing you have up there is the Community Block Grant North Boulevard Award. As I mentioned earlier, we will be reconstructing that this summer. It's $72,000 worth of road improvements, or approximately that. In addition to that, we've been in contact with Lakemore. They own a small section of that road, and they're actually joining with us to reconstruct the whole section through there, so there won't be a spot left out. In the future, we will continue to try to obtain grants for these non-dedicated areas. It's a very low-income area, and by improving these roads, we take the responsibility of the burden off of the local taxpayer, the individual property owners to maintain those roads. and overall the community is a big benefit there. The next one that you see there is the Community Foundation Grant. What that is we applied for a grant with the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County. It's a community foundation grant program to where we applied for funding to revegetate additional right-of-way beyond what we did this year. As a result, we received $12,000 in grant funds, and we'll be able to revegetate approximately 6 miles worth of right-of-way out in basically the upper prairie area, north of Johnsburg Road and west of Pioneer is the main area that will be doing that. But we're pretty excited about that. So this fall we'll be out there. We will actually spray those areas that we're trying to revegetate to kill off the existing vegetation. And then in the winter, once the snow's there, we will actually go out there and spread seed during the winter on the snow. And as that snow melts, that seeding will come to the ground, and those plants will then emerge, and will eventually convert to the natural vegetation that occurs there now. Is a big benefit. The last program that I just want to mention, a couple years ago when I first became highway commissioner, I never realized how much the Nippersink subdivision floods. It's a subdivision in our northeast corner of Mchenry Township, and it has the Nippersink flowing right through it, just upstream of the Fox River. I remember, I believe it was last year, early last year, we saw a lot of rain, and we were worried about flooding, but the Fox River wasn't flooding, so I didn't think much about it. I went home about 5 o'clock. We got a call that some people that live in the Nippersink subdivision or that area up there were seeing some flooding, and could we get up there and give them a hand? We went up there, and I was amazed to realize that the Nippersink Creek floods much more rapidly. It's water that comes all the way from Wonder Lake and goes through the Conservation District and eventually ends up in the Fox River there. And that whole subdivision floods regularly. It is completely inundated with the floodplain. And we learned of a flood program last year, which is the buyout program that the federal government has, and we started the process of determining interest in the residents that live there to actually buy them out of their residence and then remove those residents and create open space to avoid that future flooding problems and flood insurance issues and the money that they receive for any damage to floodplain. So that's a really interesting program. It'll be neat if we can get it to move forward. The big challenge that we have is we have to come up with 20% of the costs, and the federal government covers 80% of the costs. So Mr. Wheeler will probably be talking to you to ask for some assistance from the county on that program if we can get moving forward. So, but there's quite a few houses. There's about half of the residents out there. It's a non-dedicated road subdivision. It's gravel roads. It's regularly underwater and almost impossible to pass. So from a life safety issue for emergency vehicles and things like that to get back there, sometimes it has been a problem. So but that's really the summary of what we have going on this year. I can only say thank you again for allowing me to serve you, and thank you for the staff who, whether you realize it or not, unless you're involved with them on a daily basis, you have no idea how much these guys enjoy their job, how much they're thinking to try to do something different and better and save you dollars. And we really do accomplish a lot, and I get to see it firsthand and be a part of it and get to take a lot of pride in it. So I greatly appreciate that. So that's it for us. So thanks. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Next item on the agenda is new business. A, under new business, electors requesting an agenda item for consideration of an inoperable motor vehicle ordinance. The ordinance being in the form is attached here to is Exhibit A. Exhibit A is available for viewing on the Mchenry Township website at www.mchenrytownship.com and is available for inspection at the offices of McHenry Township 15 days before the date of this meeting. The ordinance is as follows. An ordinance regulating inoperable motor vehicles located within McHenry Township. Whereas Section 30-130 of the Township Code authorizes the electors at an annual township meeting by ordinance to declare inoperable motor vehicles, whether on public or private property, to be a nuisance and to authorize fines to be levied for the failure of any person to obey any notice from the township stating that the person is to dispose of any inoperable motor vehicle under his or her control, and that's through Illinois ILCS 130 to 130, section 30 to 130. And whereas section 30 to 130 further authorizes the electors to authorize law enforcement agencies with applicable jurisdiction to remove any inoperable motor vehicle or parts of such vehicle as therein provided. Now therefore be it ordained by the electors of the Mchenry Township, the electors at their annual meeting on April 9th, 2019 as follows. Section 1, definitions. For the purpose of this ordinance, the following words and phrases shall have the following meanings ascribed to them. Inoperable motor vehicle means and includes any motor vehicle from which, for a period of at least 7 days, the engine, wheels, or other parts have been removed, on or which the engine, wheels, or other parts have been altered, damaged, or otherwise treated so that the vehicle is incapable of being driven under its own motor power. An operable motor vehicle does not include a motor vehicle that has been rendered temporarily incapable of being driven under its own motor power in order to perform ordinary service or repair operations. Section 2. Inoperable motor vehicles declared nuisance. Pursuant to section 30 through 130 of the Township Code, electors hereby declare inoperable motor vehicles located within Mchenry Township, McHenry County, Illinois, whether on public or private property, to be a nuisance, whether controlled by the owner, tenant, or other occupant of the property. It is the intent of the electors to make all such persons jointly and severely liable for compliance herewith. Section 3, notice of violation. Pursuant to section 30 to 130 of the Township Code, electors hereby authorize the Township Clerk to issue a notice to the person who is the vehicle owner and or owner of record on the property on which the nuisance exists or occurs, and or to the applicant of said property to dispose of any inoperable motor vehicle or parts of such a vehicle that is under their control within 7 days of receipt of said notice. Provided, however, that the township supervisor or their designee has first determined that the said vehicle is an inoperable motor vehicle within the meaning of this ordinance, the township notice shall be delivered by one of the two forms. One, by affixing a sticker to the window of the vehicle, directing the person who is the vehicle owner and or owner of the property, owner of the record of the property on which the nuisance exists, or owners and or to the applicant of said property to remove the nuisance within 7 days of the date of the affixing sticker. Or number 2, by mailing certified mail, return receipt requested, and regular mail to the last known address of the vehicle owner and or owner of the record of the property on which the nuisance exists or occurs, and to the owner occupant of said property. Section 4, fines and penalties. Any person who fails to dispose of any inoperable motor vehicle under their control within 7 days of receipt of the township notice from the township clerk as provided in section 3 above, all shall be responsible for the cost of removal and may be fined not less than $50 and not no more than $500 for each offense. Each day the violation continues shall be a separate offense. Section 5, enforcement. Electors hereby authorize the township supervisor or their designee to perform all acts necessary to enforce the provisions of this ordinance, and may either direct and or enter into agreements with one or more law enforcement agencies to act on behalf of the township in enforcing this ordinance. The township attorney is hereby authorized to enforce and prosecute violations under this ordinance. Section 6, removal by law enforcement agency. The electors hereby authorize law enforcement agencies with applicable jurisdiction to remove after 7 days from the issuance of the township notice provided in section 3 above any inoperable motor vehicle or parts of such a vehicle. Section 7, exclusions. Nothing in this ordinance applies to any motor vehicle that is kept within a building when not in use, to an operable historic vehicle over 25 years of age, or to a motor vehicle on the premises of a place of business engaged in the wrecking or junking of motor vehicles. Section 8, severability. If any section, paragraph or provision of this ordinance shall be held to be invalid or unenforceable for any reason, the invalidity or unenforceability of such section, paragraph, or provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions of this ordinance. Section 9, repeal of prior ordinances. All prior ordinances and resolutions in conflict or inconsistent herewith are hereby expressly repealed only to the extent of such conflict or inconsistency. Section 10, effective date. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and removal. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the ordinance as read, regularly inoperable motor vehicles located within Mchenry Township.
I so move.
Motion made. We have first, what's your name, sir?
William J. Nye.
Okay.
We're just approving.
William Nye. And the second? Robert Beltran.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Beard?
Well, first of all, there's a county ordinance. It's in full force and effect now. Okay, with different fines, different times. Okay, are you guys aware of that? Additionally, all the municipalities, the major ones, have their own ordinances. So is this ordinance going to affect vehicles that are within the boundaries of a town? There's nothing here about tag vehicles. If there's a valid tag on the car. There's nothing here about tarps. There's a lot of cases about counties getting into trouble by considering tarp vehicles inoperable. There's all kinds of liability with this. I think it's unconstitutional in one respect. If you go to the fines and penalties section, page 2, section 4, you've got this span, $50 a day or $500 a day for each offense. Who makes that determination? Because if it's the same person that enforces the ordinance, that gives him too much power. If you're going to set a specific fine, $100 a day, $500, $10,000 a day, that would be okay. But when you set up a range and you have the same person enforcing the ordinance, there's going to be all kinds of trouble with that. Because it vests too much sway with whoever is making the decision. If somebody's on vacation, you know, they take a 2-week vacation, they get with possibly, what, $3,500 in fines. In section 3, notice of violation, the very last line. I think that's a mistake. It shouldn't be and or to the occupant of said property. It should be and. Otherwise, you're confiscating potentially property from someone with due process. It sets up problems. If there's a problem with the county not enforcing in the unincorporated areas, or the municipalities not enforcing in the incorporated areas, that's okay. The township may wind up to be the one having to do it all. Somebody calls in Mchenry, they say, go call the township. Somebody in Johnsford, no, let the township do it, okay? So, you say that there's possibly an ordinance that you're repealing in section 9, but you don't identify what it is. There's just a lot of problems with this, and I'm trying to figure out why it's necessary. Isn't the county doing things? Aren't these towns doing things?
I'll be happy to report on that. The county will not take motor vehicles that are on private property that have been abandoned for years and do anything about it.
That conflicts with the county ordinance.
It may, but they will do nothing about it. I've talked to the county health department about various properties, nothing ever gets done. And we have owners here tonight of properties that can testify to that.
Pardon?
I'm sure we have Mr. Nye here, who is an owner of a property that could testify to that fact. And I have properties in Wonder Lake. One resident in particular has looked at 6 to 7 vehicles on a lot that have abandoned there for 20 years, and the county will do nothing about it.
Who did you speak to at the county?
Mchenry County Health Department. I don't remember who the individual was, but I believe even Mr. Militello, our lawyer, called them at one point.
Mr. Simonson?
I agree with Mr. Beer on a lot of the points that he raised, and also want to point out that they are private property, parked on private property, and that the township shouldn't be involved in removing people's private property from their private property. There's no, just because you don't like seeing them on your neighbor's property does not actually present a public nuisance. There is no health hazard, there is no safety hazard. It is.
I see coyotes coming out of the outdoors.
Coyotes will come out of fields
Yeah.
or garages
Yeah,
or
but
wherever
it's warm
they're.
here, you know, it's warm and everything else, and, you know, recreation.
Need to be able to recognize anybody who
I'm sorry.
speaks up. Further discussion?
Yeah. I beg to differ on the issue of there being no environmental concerns. Abandoned vehicles leak antifreeze, they leak oil.
Judy, state your
Yes,
name.
Judy Gotti.
Thank you.
That's the reason why salvage yards have regulations that apply to them, is because there are considerable environmental problems, and most people here are on private wells. They're not interested in having some abandoned vehicles close to their well leaking into the groundwater. I mean, this is real. Abandoned vehicles that have been abandoned for a long time are an environmental hazard.
Thank you, Judy. Eric?
But the Illinois EPA and the United States EPA both have regulations that determine what amount of chemicals leaking out of those vehicles are a hazard, and the amount of chemicals that you're going to have out of one vehicle or out of several vehicles doesn't rise to that level. That's why scrap yards and that have, where they are doing a large quantity of salvaging of vehicles, have those regulations, but there's not a hazard, at least based on any evidence that you could find from the EPA, that it's a hazard from one vehicle or several vehicles.
I will go up here. Mike has said his.
I'm William Nye.
William.
Only here,
William.
That's okay.
because of my hearing.
Okay.
I reside very close to one unit that is in question here tonight. I've been actually been a permanent resident since 1960 at my home on Riverside Drive. Just adjacent to it and across the street is an issue of the vehicles sitting there. I believe the count is something like 5 or 6 right at the present time. These things sit there, they don't do anything, there's no maintenance of them. They're construction vehicles, they're land moving vehicles, not moving any at all. We all try to take a positive approach to maintaining our homes. At my age, I'm having a little trouble doing that, but I think can be a little prideful of having my home looking well. We have new residents that have taken great interest in keeping their homes up. This is right along the river, the piece of property just across Riverside Drive and adjacent to my 1634 and across. I would appeal to you that some vehicle removal method must be given, or you're going to have somebody that's been a resident all their lives here, that lives there by himself, will not maintain anything, and he is fully capable of removing these vehicles. He repaired them himself many years ago. So I appeal to you to please consider that we have homes that we take pride in, And this person keeps no pride whatsoever in it. Thank you.
Mike, did you wish to speak?
Mike Toller. If any of you attend meetings, you know that I don't often agree with Mr. Veer, but I will agree with him here on some points. I think the time period, 7 days, is a little too short. If I were to go acquire a classic Mustang and start rebuilding it, I don't think I could have it up and running in 7 days, could I? You know, especially if I bought it from body shell and built it back up. I think if we extended that out to 30 days and we narrowed that, the fine down to more specific and not such a broad range, I think that would be a happy medium there. Thank you.
Mr. Beard?
Well, Toller's right on what he covered. And I don't approve of abandoned vehicles. I agree with Ms. Gottlieb. They're an eyesore. It can be dangerous and all the rest. The problem is, we already have all these municipalities and the county covering this problem. So the solution isn't to create more laws, it's to get these laws already in existence enforced. We haven't dealt with this fine problem. That's a big constitutional problem. It allows too much discretion to apparently the same person that's going to enforce the action. Now, nothing in this proposed ordinance says apparently this property can be confiscated and seized 7 days after the notice, if it's still there. So what's going to happen? Is it stored somewhere? Does somebody have to pay for the storage cost, or is it just seized? That's it. I mean, these are big problems. The county ordinance addresses a lot of these. I'd like to know who drafted this thing. They copies the county ordinance in part, and then completely disregards other parts of it. And that whole thing about the county will not go on private property, that has to do with all of these cases where people have tarped their cars, put it behind sheds and all that, and other counties, I'm not saying Mchenry, have gone in and seized it, and the enforcing authority is hit for seizing property without due process law. And we've got a county board member here to say, why isn't the county enforcing this county ordinance that already is in existence? They've got the manpower and the sheriff and everything. Are we going to pay these? It doesn't really say, it just says applicable authorities. Is the township going to have its own police force now? Do they pay Johnsburg to take out the Johnsburg car that's in violation of the Johnsburg ordinance? I mean, there's just way too many problems with this thing as it exists. And so far I've heard there's 4 or 5 cars that this is apparently targeting. Or what's a vehicle? It's not even really defined. Are TARP vehicles exempt from this? Because the way the law in Illinois is, they are.
Okay, Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, just for clarification, what Mr. Burr is saying is that you know, the municipalities are going to have the townships enforce this. The township doesn't have any authority within the municipalities. They do not create ordinances for the municipalities and the towns. So this is for the unincorporated areas only. Am I not right, Mr. Miller?
This would fall within the township as a whole.
I don't know about that as far as individual municipalities. I don't think you can regulate, especially those that have home rule.
Especially if it's home rule, but if there's an ordinance on the book that's already addressing it. In this particular case, we're talking about the township and enforcement within the township as a whole, and within this section of the township code, which is being referenced in this, it talks about the electors authorizing a law enforcement agency in whatever the applicable jurisdiction is. And so the township can enter into intergovernmental agreements with those jurisdictions, whether it's Johnsburg or Mchenry, in order to do that enforcement.
It doesn't go in automatically. They'd have to have the removal right in order to do that. So the township code doesn't automatically authorize it. It provides for the ability to adopt an inoperable motor vehicle. It also defines, and there's some questions here as far as what that is, and I'm looking at 30 Act 130 right now, and it defines what is an inoperable motor vehicle, and it also defines what is not an inoperable motor vehicle. As far as the jurisdiction issue and the removal of the vehicle, the township would have to enter into an agreement with the enforcement agency, for example, Johnsburg or Mchenry, for them to do it.
Correct, correct. I mean, in other words, you don't just create, I mean, the way Mr.
You just can't go in. You
sounds,
just can't go into Johnsburg and remove a vehicle.
Exactly.
Exactly. You'd have to have an intergovernmental agreement or agreement with the law enforcement agency in order to do that.
Which I'm sure our attorneys would take a look at the ordinance and then would give the city council guidance in what we want to do.
And the statute, which I'm referring to here, it says the electors may authorize a law enforcement agency with applicable jurisdiction to remove. The statute also does say after 7 days from the issuance of the township notice. And as I've heard here, it does provide for 7 days. However, you could extend that beyond 7 days. But to the point of the enforcement within Johnsburg or the enforcement within, let's talk about the county, you would have to have an agreement with the sheriff's office in order to do that removal. In fact, at the time, at one time, and this is in reference to Supervisor Adams, is at one time the township had an ordinance, and the state's attorney's office declared that it was at that time too broad, overly broad, that the language that defined the vehicle, as pointed out by Mr. Beer, might have been too broad, and it covered too large of an area. And in that particular case, the state's attorney's office then, in cooperation with the sheriff's office, said it's too broad. We're not going to enforce it. We're not going to apply it. The language here in this particular ordinance references the exact language in the statute. But I think if this group, as electors, decide to move forward and approve this, it then would be incumbent upon the township to enter into those intergovernmental agreements with those agencies to do that enforcement regarding the removal.
I just think you'd wind up with some real problems as far as townships going into municipalities to enforce anything. I think more than anything, it would be more of a one hand works with the other.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to where Mr. Burr makes it sound like, you know, the municipalities are going to dump it on the townships that have to take care of it.
Yeah, I think not just with the county, but the municipalities, you'd have to have an open discussion as far as what that process would look like. Meaning, we have when I used to do it with the state's attorneys a lot of time, when you would get to complaint driven, a lot of, whether it was out of the zoning department or the health department, a lot of those complaints are complaint driven, and as a result of that complaint driven, somebody then goes out there. In this particular case, the supervisor is tied with that or his designee as far as that citing. Now, the clerk would issue the notice, but the actual removal, the ability, the township, the supervisor or the clerk or anybody else within the township can't go out and go onto somebody's property and remove a vehicle. You just can't do that. Exactly. And it'd be trespass for one thing. Number two, the only one who's going to be able to do that is somebody who's a law enforcement agency, whether it's your county sheriff or your police department. And they're just not going to do it because you call them up and ask them, hey, I got a truck out here, can you go and remove it? You're going to have an agreement with those units of government to do that. And they're going to have a process in order to do that. And part of that process may be you know, we're going to put a sticker, meaning the sheriff's office is going to go out there and put a sticker on the vehicle. Or the city of Johnsburg, the Johnsburg police goes out and put it. You know, so there's going to be some process here and some further discussion as far as agreements in order to do that enforcement, because the township doesn't have the ability to just enforce the removal of it. It authorizes them to, as the statute says, to enter into agreements with law enforcement agencies. So that's all I have on that.
Okay.
Go to
So,
Mr. If that answers your question.
Again, more than anything, is the clarification of the fact that it's not to where the city of McHenry or the city of Johnsburg is going to be dumping this authority on the township.
You can just flat out refuse to do it.
And not taking and acting on themselves. I think, some of the things that the gentleman mentioned as far as abandoned cars and all that, that doesn't happen in McHenry anymore. We've come to enforce that for many years as far as those type of abandoned cars and a lot of other problems, So, yes, I think it would behoove the entire township to take care of a problem like this. I would definitely probably vote yes for it, but I tend to wonder if there needs to be a caveat in there to some extent for some flexibility for the board and the attorney to take and make sure that we have something that's totally ironclad, and that again, Mr. Burr did bring up as far as the fines. Maybe we do need an exact fine. And maybe that's what needs to be put into motion to where that the ordinance after being reviewed and approved by the attorney would go into effect.
Thank you, Mr. Glad. Mr. Syvertson has his hand up for a while, and I'll come back to Mr. Wheeler.
So, the main issue here is that they are vehicles owned by people who are parking them on their own property, and the township would then have the authority to fine them for parking their own vehicle on their own property, and would have the ability to remove their vehicle from their property, which then the ordinance doesn't really say what would happen with that vehicle. And like I have a vehicle that it was originally purchased by my grandpa the year I was born. I drove it. It was one of my first vehicles. Drove it for several years, and then it's been parked for probably 9 years now. In that time, I've been acquiring parts. I've changed out the motor in it and been acquiring parts to rebuild that truck into something that will eventually be an operable motor vehicle. But it hasn't driven on the road in 9 years. That would fall into the category here of having been inoperable for more than 7 days, and there is no provision for how that would be dealt with, other than just up to the discretion of whoever decides to enforce it, that whoever in the future is in that position.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. This is well intended, and I think it's got some very good merits to it, but you're putting the cart before the horse, okay? You have to have, the horse out front, which means you have to negotiate, enter into these intergovernmental agreements first, and then write the ordinance. Because you guys, these figures, they're broad here, but who's going to pay for the sheriff to go out there? Who's going to pay for the storage? Who's going to be responsible for watching the vehicle after it's sat there? Who's going to pay the county? Okay? This, I can tell you right now, the sheriff would probably be very apprehensive, and I'm speaking mildly right now, about enforcing an ordinance like this. I think that what you may want to look at right now in the immediate thing is talking to community development at the county. Speaking with that head of Dennis, talk to them about zoning violations. It sounds to me like this is a commercial operation. If there's 4 or 5 abandoned vehicles that are there, or 3 or more vehicles there, that we're talking about commercial vehicles in a residential area, then a property that's not zoned commercial. Okay? There's a whole bunch, maybe that's why going to the health department didn't really work. Okay? But there are things, but in fairness to the county is a complaint-driven mechanism. We don't go around the streets trying to find problems and make neighbors upset with each other, okay? If a resident calls up the county, it's investigated, okay? And I'm talking about the property, I'm talking about the community development department. If you call up over there and tell them that this is going on, they will do it. And if the health department is separate, so there's 2 different prongs that you can approach this from. But I would just say, establish a committee that's gonna talk with the municipalities and develop an agreement with those municipalities, so you know exactly what this thing costs and who's gonna be paying what, okay? Then you come up with an ordinance with the fine and what have you, and I'm sure that everyone will be in favor of it. But at this point, I think that we're putting, again, a horse before the cart.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Any other discussion?
Or whatever. The other way around.
Yeah, right. I would like to make a motion then, to amend.
No, it's too early for that. We haven't had enough comments. There's other people.
A motion to amend?
Yes.
And a motion to amend would be appropriate here.
It's totally true.
You can't amend these
As long as somebody seconds it, it's okay.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to amend section 1, line 3, starting from a period of at least 7 days, strike and replace with a period of at least 30 days. And section 4, line 1, 2, 3, 4, or actually line 3, starting with and may be fined not less than $500 and no more than $50 and no more than $500 for each offense, and replace with may be fined $50 for each offense.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second in the back. Your name, sir?
Parliamentary.
Point of order, is it possible to amend these resolutions? Because last year you ruled that it was not.
This is an ordinance that is for this group as far as adopting it. It's within your realm. The question last year was a specific question that was on the agenda, which is different than what this is. This is an ordinance that you have in front of you. The agenda item is different. In this particular case, it says electors requesting an agenda item for consideration of an inoperable motor vehicle ordinance. And so here you have that ordinance. And so if there's a change to this ordinance, and this body, this group of electors, wish to amend and make a change to this as it's in front of you, then you can do that. You have a first, and I don't know if I heard a second, but in the relevance to last year, it was a specific agenda item that the electors were trying to change, and that was it.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a second.
Further discussion on the amendment?
I know, that's.
Yes, we can have further discussion on the amendment. Mr. Bear?
Mr. Toller's amendments are fine, but it still doesn't address all these other problems. The TARP problem, if people have unexpired tags on the vehicle, the due process problem, seizing a vehicle off somebody's property, what about the storage? All this stuff, it's not even gonna be enforceable until these intergovernmental agreements are in. We don't even know what we're rescinding. What is this ordinance that we're rescinding? So, this thing is still totally unconstitutional the way it is. Although I agree with Mr. Toller, the 30 days is far more reasonable. You still don't have any mechanism for due process. You just go to a judge, what? Who decides? Even if the fine is fixed, who decides to go in and grab it? Without any, just on their own. I mean, that could be a problem, especially when you don't even have an ordinance that corrects who may actually own it now. That last section of, the last line of section 3.
Yes, sir.
My name's Dave Watkins. Most municipalities and everything actually have adopted the International Property Maintenance Code that gives specific penalties, violations, descriptions of vehicles. This is the most poorly written piece of paper I've ever read. It's vague, it gives no definition of anything. It says motor vehicle. What exactly is a motor vehicle? Electric, solar powered? dirt bikes, quads, snowmobiles, lawnmowers, anything like that, weed whackers. You know, it doesn't give any definition of that. The property maintenance code will explain, there's sections in there that talks about abandoned vehicles, upkeep of vehicles, and properly tagged vehicles. It is adopted by most municipalities, therefore, because it gives you teeth into getting compliance. It has fines that are set in there, which are adopted by the municipalities, that talk about specific fines. So if you're at a first-time offense, you usually fine for $50. If it's not brought into compliance, a second violation will be sent. At that point in time, it goes up to $100, and that would be a per-day offense. This is vague. I wouldn't, you know, anybody can do this. If you agree to this, somebody can walk onto your property and go, I don't like your car, it's a nuisance, I'm gonna take your car. He can make the decision at any point in time. As the clerk, he can appoint himself, he can appoint anybody in this room to say, I don't like that car, I want you to take that car. It's been sitting there for 7 days. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Aylward?
I have been a victim of, I can sympathize with Mr. Nye.
Could you use the mic, please?
I can sympathize with Mr. Nye totally. I have a property that adjoins mine, and I actually wish it would go further. I should actually thank these people because I fought my taxes, and Mary can attest to this. And I showed her pictures of all the junk, not only the vehicles, but junk. At one time, there was 7 vehicles in junk. I called the county, they did nothing. They come out, they red tag, and they never follow up. There was so much junk, I got my tax assessment reduced $50,000. This is affecting property value. And it also is a health area because these junk vehicles are shelter for rats and other things. So it does affect the health of the thing. But to have, here, I live a few doors north of Mr. Nye, so I know what house he's talking about. And again, it's just very frustrating. Something has to be done. Maybe this, okay, I agree, this ordinance maybe have to be tweaked, okay, but something has to be done. If you had 7 vehicles, junk vehicles lining your property lines, I'm sure you would agree with this ordinance. That's all I have to say.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to know who originally wrote the ordinance, this ordinance. Who wrote this?
It's not relevant.
Oh, actually it is. It is relevant, because if he wrote it, it's in his opinion, based on his surrounding neighbors.
He didn't write it?
I did not.
Huh?
He did write it, does not tell you.
Well, if it's written by anybody in this government, it's actually a
Written by my
question.
attorney, I'm the one who posted it on the agenda, he did not write it.
I can tell you this, I was presented this at the last, one of the meetings, and I was asked to look at this ordinance relative to the code, that being the township code. So in response to your statement that what does, there is no definition of inoperable motor vehicle, townships work under the Dillon's rule where it provides for, if it's not written in the statute, you can't just put stuff out there. And in this particular case, there is a definition within the township code. It doesn't address tarps and it doesn't address some of the things that were pointed out. It's very specific as far as what is an inoperable motor vehicle. And what it says is, as used in section, inoperable motor vehicle means any motor vehicle for which, for a period of at least 7 days, or any longer period of time fixed by the ordinance, which goes to your point, thank you, the engines, wheels, or other parts have been removed, or in which the engine, wheels, or parts have been altered, damaged, or otherwise treated, so that the vehicle is incapable of being driven under its own motor power. Inoperable motor vehicle does not include a motor vehicle that has been rendered temporarily incapable of being driven under its own motor power in order to perform ordinary service or repetitive operations.
Ordinary,
So,
not like restoration processes, because that's not ordinary. Ordinary would be like a belt change or a.
I'm not going to define what ordinary means because.
I think it
Right.
says ordinary repair.
Because ordinary means something different to every single person. So it has to be defined.
I got a classic Chevy I'm restoring. It's ordinary for me to freaking take the engine apart and rebuild it. It takes me more than a month to rebuild it. But
If
you
it's
come on
or-
my property,
if it's
so I take my
ordinary,
car,
then
somebody's gonna
I'm just
problem.
reading you the definition.
Right, right. But
Further discussion?
is it any vehicle with
Yes, sir.
a motor?
I don't like this ordinance because I also work on cars and stuff as well. And the vehicle I drive to work every day here at the township was, when I had a broken engine when I bought it, it took me over 30 days to get it running. So that would have been red tagged, and I wouldn't have my vehicle that I drive here every day. Was it a nuisance to my neighbors? I don't think so. Maybe some of them didn't like it, I don't know. Nobody brought it up to me, so as far as I know, there were no problems. But I think if there's a nuisance problem, we need to get a better defined. I agree, you got 7 broken vehicles lined up on your property and rats and coyotes running through them, that's a nuisance problem. But somebody, his truck, somebody might not like, but if he maintains the thing and it's not rotting out in his property, I don't think it should be towed away if he's trying to restore his family's vehicle and he doesn't have a lot of money to put into it all the time. That's my opinions. And we also don't live in the city of McHenry or the city of Chicago or Arlington Heights. We're kind of country out here. That's why we live out here. And I don't disagree that property values do go down, but I think we need to figure out a better nuisance program as to what a nuisance is. 30 days or 7 days, I don't think is a nuisance. A guy restoring a car or a truck, I don't think is a nuisance. If he's got 6 of them laying out there that are broke down restored, it's a different story in my opinion. I think we definitely need to come up with a better nuisance ordinance to control this issue.
Okay. Any other further
BJ,
discussion?
sorry.
What about the storage problem? Are these things gonna be junk if it's 7 days or 30 days? There's gotta be some mechanism for somebody to protest the whole darn thing.
Where we gonna put it?
Right.
If it's
Where's it go?
It's still Joe's.
Does the township scrap it and get the money for it? I mean, this is like classic lack of due process.
I mean, my understanding is that the ordinance would have to be would have to be applied by a law enforcement agency. In other words, the township staff could not go out and do this. It has to be done by the sheriff or by the police department or, and they have standard procedures for how to deal with a vehicle that they've removed because it was parked in the wrong place. It's impounded and taken to a place and you can, go get it after with a certain payment. No, I'm just saying that the law enforcement agencies have a standard process for dealing with vehicles that they have been called upon to remove. Now, I don't know, my concern right now is that there are enough concerns that have been raised that I think, I hear from a lot of people that, yes, we do need to do something to make it possible for nuisance situations to be addressed. But enough concerns have been raised about the language of this ordinance that we either need to form a committee to work on it and have another called meeting or something. I'm trying to think through what would be the process for us to work through some of the many questions that have been raised.
The electors could table an issue. The electors could table an issue to another special meeting if the board of electors wanted to do that, or they could deny it at this time and bring it back at a later date.
How do you deny it? Move to deny it?
It would vote. No. It would be upon a vote.
You have to bring it up as a motion.
Or the electors could table the matter to another date.
Point of order, there is a motion and a second on the floor. And I believe that we have to address that issue first before we can move anywhere else, unless a motion to table comes up during the discussion.
So, we had a first, I hear the to amend, and then the second, who seconded?
Back, Stan.
Okay. You're gonna wanna vote this to, vote as to the amendment of the ordinance. This is just not approving the ordinance, but amending
This is
the
for
language.
the amended version
Amending
of
the
the
language.
ordinance.
Do you need me to restate the motion to table it? So, do we come up with something?
We're in the middle of a vote right now, Steve, you can't make another motion.
I can put a table.
All in favor of, no, all in favor of amending the motion.
So we have to have a vote on the amendment motion.
To include 30 days and $50.
I have a motion to table it, which I've been trying to do. I appeal to the county board member for that.
Let's finish the motion.
The motion to table
It's a
takes
precedent.
precedent.
Well, it is a precedent motion. Table is always an immediate action if it's seconded.
I
You can table it if there's a second?
A motion to table has to be seconded for discussion, otherwise it dies.
So does anybody
Mr.
second my
Beer is
motion?
the
Yes,
first.
all
Mr.
have to vote.
Sivertson is the second. To table the motion.
We have a second now.
Mr. Sivertson seconded.
The table, is this to table the motion, both motions, or just?
Yeah, both.
Okay, so just for clarification for the record, it's a motion to table both motions, not just the amendment, but the motion to approve the ordinance. Is that your second?
Yep.
So then, all in favor, this is beats a table.
Could you please say it clearly what people are voting on, because we can't hear you. We would like to know.
There's been a motion and a second relative to tabling the motion to amend the ordinance, and it's included to table the adoption of the ordinance, correct? And then there was a second, correct? And your name is?
Eric.
Thank you for the record. All in favor, please raise your green card.
Wait.
Do we not get to discuss this?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. Why? I mean, I made a suggestion that we form, that a committee be formed of people, with people who have had concerns that they've raised, that they want to see incorporated into a nuisance ordinance. Now, if we're going to table it, I would like to establish a committee that is going to work on it and present it to a meeting in 3 months or 4 months, when many of the concerns that have been raised would be addressed. But I don't like to table something without having a mechanism for making the improvements.
Oh, if I may.
Mr. Beard?
You can always call another special meeting when you have something that's decent, okay? Obviously, we're not gonna vote on anything today. So, the way out of this whole thing is table it, come back with something constitutional that makes sense. Get to the bottom of why the county isn't enforcing things. Get a committee or anybody you want. And then call another special meeting.
Mr. Black?
Okay. Number one, the motion says to table it, but there is no timetable of when you're tabling it to.
Yeah.
Okay, so that becomes one issue. The way I look at it is there seems to be a lot of problems as far as the way this is written. It seems to me that most everybody in this room has expressed in one way, shape, or form that they're in favor of doing something, but we need a more outline. So maybe what we need is instead of tabling this and that and everything else, is maybe we need to make a motion to direct, whether it be the township board or, although from last year's meeting, we never did get a good study on the township roads, and I'd be afraid that if we made a motion to direct trustees to bring forward something at another town meeting, or township meeting in another, let's say specific, 3 months from now or whatever. Something to where it would be, have time for somebody to actually straighten this out and bring it forward with something that would be totally solid so that everybody could agree on it.
Ms. Leahy?
Okay, so this is the annual meeting, once a year. Whoever put this forward did it, put it out there for people to vote on. This board is not, this is not a board that has a power to do anything other than Robert's rules, control the meeting, and make sure that the business is conducted by the electors who are here. I don't know why we're not taking a vote. If it gets voted down, it gets voted down. If you vote on an amendment, you vote on the amendment. But the business of this meeting should be finished tonight. No special meeting, no additional meeting to call people out. It's called the annual meeting for a reason, because this is the only place that the electors have the power to put something on the agenda and vote on it. You need to finish this business here tonight, give it, like it or not. This is what the electors have done. Somebody did their work. Vote on it. Let's vote. There's an amendment, there's a vote on that, and there's something on the floor. Your job is to run this as a board, as Robert's rules, to make sure that the business gets conducted. Please do that.
Mr. Cyrus?
Robert's rules would say that we are following Robert's rules because there was a motion to table it. And so that would be in order. If the electors here want to table it, we should be able to table it. That's part of Robert's rules.
You have to vote on all of them.
No, what we're being,
What you have here is motions, and you do have Robert's rules. What you don't have the authority to do is develop a committee right now and have another subcommittee. The electors, you do not have that ability. You do have the ability to meet amongst yourselves and have your own meeting. You certainly can do that. You certainly have the ability to call a special meeting if you so choose to do that. But relative to the motions tonight, all you're going to be doing is approving, disapproving, or abstaining from the vote. Right now, there's currently on the floor a motion to table a matter to some indefinite time period, and that indefinite time period is not going to happen until it's brought back up before, whether it's in the form of an annual meeting or a special meeting. So essentially, if that motion is approved, it would be essentially like a motion to disapprove the ordinance anyway. So is there any other discussion on the motion to table the matter?
I call the question.
Okay, we have a calling of the question. So the question, the motion is to table the amendment and the motion to approve the ordinance. So it's tabling it. All in favor, raise your green cards to table the matter. To table it. We're going to need a count.
So then this is essentially just denied.
Right.
As is.
Typically, we table to the next meeting, which will be next year. Unless it's a special meeting.
She said we can't do special meetings.
That's okay. That's what I do.
All right.
21 days. Okay, we have 21 A's. Any nays to not table? We can't force it. Motion approved to table the ordinance.
What was the count?
9 to 21. Okay, moving on. Old business. Old business of the township this evening. Seeing none.
We can try.
Recognition of electors for comments, 3 minutes per speaker. No action can be taken. If you wish to speak, 3-minute time frame.
Can't hear you.
There's a list.
Can't hear you.
There's a list in the back of the room.
Next item on the agenda is the recognition of electors for comments. There's a 3-minute limit per speaker. No action can be taken at this meeting. There was a sign-in sheet when we signed in for the meeting this evening. They're retrieving the list to see if anybody has signed up to speak.
Neil? Can I just say one thing quick? I didn't sign up.
Mr. Condon?
I just wanted to apologize to 2 members of my staff that put the PowerPoint together today, Jackie Wagner and Dana Hines. They did a lot of the work, and I forgot to mention them today, so my apologies to them. They did a great job today.
Public comment speakers, number 1 on the list, Mr. Robert Beltran.
Hi, my name is Robert Beltran. I live at 2814 Bregner Road in Mchenry. I just wanted to talk about follow-through. A year ago, we voted to require a cost-benefit study regarding the consolidation of the road district into the township, or it was actually to eliminate the road district. Specifications beyond that were pretty fuzzy. No action was taken on the part of the board. It was ignored entirely. This year, we had 3 resolutions proposed in addition to the one we were just debating. And the resolutions all had plenty of signatures, but the board elected to not put those proposed resolutions on the agenda. So I guess the alternative to ignoring what we have to say is not have us have a voice in the first place. This was a decision of some of the trustees, not necessarily all of them. I wanted to mention that one of the proposed resolutions was addressing a related matter related to the last year's resolution regarding the consolidation, and which was to make a statement, not to cost, this would not cost the township any money, but simply a statement that we, the electors, would be resolving that we oppose any consolidation effort or legislation that did not have a proper cost-benefit study performed. That was apparently shut down by our board, that they did not want to be in the position of advancing, as this resolution would have asked, that opinion, assuming we all had it and voted to that effect, that we opposed an effort to consolidate without cost-benefit study. And that we simply were asking the board to put forth a letter informing the governor and the legislature of the way we felt about it, but they didn't want to do that.
30 seconds left.
Okay. Another one would have had us develop a committee, to establish a committee, that the board would have established a committee of the electors and the board to develop bylaws, because we actually operate without bylaws. And in fact, the statute says that we, the electors, can adopt bylaws. And so we were again ignored.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Second on the list, Mike Toller.
Thank you. We've been here long enough. I had a whole thing that I was going to go through really quick. I'll kind of truncate it down into something small. I'm here tonight not only as an elector, but on behalf of an organization that's growing in this county called Internet Freedom for Mchenry County. We are trying to get fiber optic, community-owned fiber optic networks built out through Mchenry County. There's a couple of reasons that are really important for the county for us to do this. Better infrastructure means more businesses setting up shop in the county. That in turn means more jobs for the county and possibly lower property taxes because of a higher business tax base. Better internet infrastructure means better property values, with some studies showing fiber in the home can increase your home value by up to $5,000. That's a half bath. Better internet infrastructure means better opportunity for schools to access learning material and that students will have for internet access at home to do their homework. And better internet infrastructure means better networking for emergency management and better response time and coordination. Now, this would be community-owned. We would own it as the citizens of McHenry County, and we would be able to lease it to companies like AT&T or Comcast or any other small local ISP that may start up. And then that would offset the costs by that lease. So if you're interested in hearing more and getting more information, see me at the end. I got a couple of little flyers. I got some business cards. We got a website, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Number 3, Judy Gottlieb.
My name is Judy Gottlieb. I live at 2814 Regner Road. Another of the proposed resolutions that was not put on the agenda concerned the issue of the fact that we have all of our offices expiring at the same time. And in other organizations that I've been a part of, generally the plan is to have staggered terms, because you don't want all of your institutional knowledge to disappear. So what I had proposed was that we have 2 trustees at one 2-year period, another set of 2 trustees at the next period, and that the clerk and the supervisor go with one batch. Obviously, you'd have to. There was a mechanism for accomplishing it, but the idea that we can't even discuss whether we want to have staggered terms concerns me. Because I do think that having everybody all up at the same time is not a good way to run things. We should have the elections, half the officers, half the elected officials are done in one 2-year period and half in the other. Everybody still would have 4-year terms, but everything doesn't come up all at once. I do think that this idea has merit. What I don't understand is how I can bring it before the electors in a way that it can be discussed. So I don't know, Mr. Militello, was there a legal problem with what I proposed?
Yeah. Big.
Good question. The issue becomes, what authority does electors here sitting have, and what is that process? Again, we have to look to the township code as to what that means and the powers that are given to this group, the electors, and what you can in fact do and what you cannot in fact do. Because as pointed out earlier, you have electors and then you have board members. And then you have authority issues relative to authority of electors, and you have authority issues of board members. And when they start to overlap or there's issues of concern, then the courts get involved and they interpret what that may or may not mean. Relative to issues that are brought by electors, going out and getting an issue and then having signatures, and it's much appreciated, I think, by the township when you have electors going out and do that. However, the statute relative to notices of meeting and agenda meetings for annual meetings, that's changed over the years. And I'm going to give you, and I'm going to get to your specifically here in a second, but it used to be where you could have issues come up at an annual meeting, here at the annual meeting, and addressing it. The statute now requires that an agenda be adopted, it be adopted in advance, and if the electors wish to have something on that agenda, they would then get it in advance. The caveat getting specifically to your point now, it specifically says in 30-10 regarding the agenda, says the agenda published by the township board shall include any such request made by the voters, which you didn't request, and that is relevant to the powers granted to the electors under the township code. Article 30 talks about all those various powers, and I think Township Supervisor Mr. Adams talked about the various powers, 30 powers plus more that the electors have. And again, as I indicated earlier, we follow the Dillon's rule if it's expressly in there. Looking at all those sections in Article 30, there was no specific statutory authority relative to staggering election pieces. Great idea. I think it's great that this may not be the medium, at least at this time, until there's changes to the statute that would allow for those types of things. In fact, the other point of it is as far as it talking about agenda items, the section C in this, and I apologize if this is a long-winded answer, but any matter or proposal not set forth on the agenda should not otherwise be talked about or considered. So your ideas, even though they may be good ideas, we wouldn't be able to get them on the agenda or then or talked about.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not understanding how it is that we can engage in a community discussion about whether we think staggered terms is a good idea and how we would go about implementing it if we wanted to. I just don't have any idea. I mean, I don't know under what law they were all set up to be all going all at once. I mean, I'm in a quandary with it.
Thank you, Judy. That is all the public comment speakers that we have signed in this evening. The next item on the agenda is a resolution to set the time and date for the 2020 annual meeting on the second Tuesday in April of 2020, which would be April 14th, 2020 at 7 p.m. So moved by Mr. Wheeler. Second by Mike Toller. All in favor? Aye. Nays? All ayes, motion passed. Next item, the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Gladden. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion is approved. We are adjourned.
We'd rather
remember that next year.
That's what I was saying. So is this riding on So who has the power to say, oh, you can restore that vehicle? Yeah, they did that at the time, right?
That's why I said
He wrote out his own video.
I've got a point. We have a That was me. And you may be right. It may be a zoning violation. You're right. It could be. That sounds to me like a commercial. I don't know what our definition of. Maybe you come up with an amendment to our zoning.
You're absolutely right. In this guy's case of Riverside Drive, that could be.
Exactly.
But in this other instance, it's not. It's just junk.
It's just a junk.
It's a junk. That's what it is.
I'm sure you've met my colleagues, but there's my card.
Is there a webpage?
In fact, it's on there. Yeah, share around with other board members, that's how you can help. Yeah, we just get the conversation started, we know where to action, and just get the conversation started. That's fine, but the individual units of government, townships, towns, things like that, under their own field list. And then they pull all that fiber, and then like, and have
Opportunity for criminals to hide in them, graffiti, and all sorts of things. But we're not really
This right in the ordinance as well.
That's nobody wants to be the first to go.
They just drive by and ticket cars without a current sticker or whatever, you know, like.
Right, that's what I was talking about. We lease it to either localize Comcast or AT&T, they lease that from every county.
I know they times for vehicles on current places.
Governments can then utilize portions of those, for example, cameras everywhere. They've got the camera on the bike trail, on the other side, they've got the camera recreational. Right now, they can for you different internet connections for each one of those, and then VPN them together. What if they can save the cost of fiber to make their own network? You don't gotta pay for an internet connection over the bills, internet connection for this camera and that camera.
They give themselves staggered terms.
Well, I am not convinced that the legislation will carry out the county.
So, and in the future, meeting of the ordinance, so we can add motion to it off the table.
The board, I was talking with Craig. I just wanted to, there's a lot of people here, and people can have very
This is just.
agree, but that doesn't mean we always have to disagree, right?
Hey, this ordinance is not ordinance coming. Yeah, ordinance is enforced because it's too broad. So,
You are right now, if this were implemented.
What I'm saying is next election. Okay, so the next election, you're on 2 billion.
Maybe the plan or tax.
That makes sense. I just.
I think they just did the same thing in FCC, didn't they? Because this election, there was some of them that were for like one term, probably 1 year, one term, some of them 2 years, some of them were for,
Yeah.
That's the one driven for that's the department that doesn't charge all of the anything that is like one of the biggest departments in the whole. And enforcement for any type of violation ordinance or exactly, that's the action. And whether you're incorporated, if you're incorporated, I don't think you're what's called, but if you're unincorporated, that's the enforcement. That's the thing, this is it goes back to what I was saying. That's the thing. Just in general.